You're listening to the Station 71 podcast with your hosts, Mario
and Brian.
So this week, we are going to take a suggestion from one of our listeners. Juliet sent over the request that she wants to hear us talk about resorts. So we're going to go through those resorts today. By tier, go from value to deluxe, talk about the ones that we've stayed at, some of our experiences with them, and we'll tell you which ones we think are good for your value and which ones, are ones that we'd probably like to stay at but never will. But first, as always, let's start with the news. So, first of our topics this week, to update one of our stories that we had been talking about for a little while now, the Carousel of Progress is continuing with the painting of the purple wall. And much to Kirsten's dismay, it is not going to be staying just a flat purple wall anymore. I'm going to link the article down in the show notes that has pictures, and it's a very, triangular design. How would you explain this? I don't really know what to say.
I can't think of a good word to describe it. It's definitely more futuristic looking. I think it's much more fitting to be in Tomorrowland now. But I'm excited about these. I'm really liking the purple wall. I think it's bringing some new freshness and some update to a Tomorrowland that's always felt kind of old. So, that's the thing, is even if you aren't the biggest fan of this, I just like the fact that Disney is putting in the work to freshen up Tomorrowland. So,
and it's one of those things, we kind of had this little debate in our private chat, but it's one of those things that it's funny how it started as an inside Disney fan thing, and now it's kind of bloomed into something that Disney themselves acknowledge. It's always really cool when you know that Disney's listening in on stuff like that. But after that, we've got digital keys coming to Walt Disney World Resorts. To summarize this article, essentially Disney World is going to be rolling out a new feature to the My Disney Experience app where you have essentially a function that would bypass the check-in process at the front desk, allowing you to use your online check-in to basically walk up to your room as soon as it's ready, push a button on your phone, and it opens your door. I have some very mixed feelings about this. What about you, Brian?
Yeah, I don't really see the need for this. You already have the Magic Band connectivity and the quick check-in with that. I don't know why you would need it on your phone, especially since, pretty much everything at Disney, you're going to need your Magic Band, and that will already open your door. This seems like a very unnecessary step. It's also kind of strange to me that they are kind of testing this out at Wilderness Lodge.
Yeah, that is weird.
I know it's the most old-themed resort. They're bringing in the new future technology. But either way, I'm not really sure about this. I don't understand the point of it quite yet.
Yeah, that's kind of how I feel. I think that it's odd that they're rolling this out because that kind of almost, in a way, starts to show you that maybe in the future we're not going to need Magic Bands. If you think about it, what do you really put on your Magic Band? You put your tickets and your room key if you're staying on property. And, if you can check into a room with the app, next step logically is to put annual passes and stuff on the app as well. Which then it's going to be really weird because we were talking about before, your phone only has so much battery. At that point, they have to compensate somewhere and figure out what whether or not it's really something they want to do, because if your phone dies, then you're SOL.
Oh yeah. Even how it is right now, if you're in the parks and your phone dies and you're not able to edit FastPasses and stuff, I already kind of get nervous if my phone's about to die because of that, and this would be 10 times worse. Granted, obviously your Magic Band is still going to open it up for you, but Yeah, if the move is to eventually do away with that and move to having everything on your phone, I'm not sure if I'm a big fan.
Yeah, that's the one thing I don't want to see happen. I don't want to see them go to the mobile, but I feel like that's where we're headed, and that kind of scares me a little bit. Overall, though, the idea that you can bypass the front desk is also kind of cool. I mean, it does kind of take away from one job at hotel space, but the idea that you can just mobile check in, on your flight down, and they can get your room ready, and you can take your stuff to the concierge, go to Disney Springs, and come back whenever you want, pick up your stuff, and just walk right to your room. It saves you a little bit of time. It's kind of convenient, so I think that's pretty neat. But other than that, I mean, I don't see the need. So after that, do you want to do yours? Because you read this one a little bit.
Sure. So the FastPass Plus tiers at Hollywood Studios are going to be changing with the opening of Toy Story Land. Essentially, the 3 Toy Story Land attractions are going to be in Tier 1, so like how it normally works for Hollywood Studios or the other tiered parks now. You get to pick one attraction from Tier 1, and then your remaining 2 FastPass Pluses from Tier 2. So now Tier 1 will have the new Alien Swirling Saucers and Slinky Dog Dash rides to pick from, and then of course you still got Toy Story Mania. And then everything else is in Tier 2, which is kind of cool because a lot of the other, Tier 1 attractions are now getting bumped down. So you could potentially do like Rock and Roller Coaster and Tower of Terror now on the same day for FastPass Plus, which is pretty cool. The other thing is, though, I'm curious to see how long this lasts, because looking at, a ride like the Swirling Saucers that's going to be opening, it's not exactly an e-ticket attraction. So I think when Galaxy's Edge opens, we're going to see another reshuffling of the tiers at Hollywood Studio.
That's kind of what I see going on, too. I think that right now it's kind of a placeholder. They don't want, the mad rush to all the attractions, and all the fast passes selling out when Toy Story Land opens. But I feel like you said, when Galaxy's Edge opens, we're going to see another shift, and it's going to be a lot more of the Galaxy's Edge attractions and Toy Story Mania, maybe even Slinky Dog Dash staying in that Tier 1. But
honestly, yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if they completely redo it, and now where all the Toy Story Land attractions are for Tier 1, I wouldn't be surprised if they make all of Galaxy's Edge attractions Tier 1 when it opens.
Yeah, I can see that being the case, too. I feel like it's going to be kind of similar to Animal Kingdom and Pandora when Galaxy's Edge opens. I think we're going to see a shift like that. But I don't know. I'm interested to see how much of a demand there is for things like you said, like the alien saucers. That's going to be one that I can't imagine is going to really take the top place for Tier 1 attractions.
True. But, at the same time, if you look at Animal Kingdom, Navi River Journey is not going to be Tier 1 for, the lifetime of that ride for sure. So I think that you're just looking for a way to, kind of quell the crowds as much as possible when the rides are first opening.
Yeah, and it's smart. It's definitely very smart because there's going to be a lot of traffic in Toy Story Land when that opens.
Mm-hmm.
So after that, we have the biggest news story of the week. Images released for Donald's Dino-Bash opening May 25th, 2018. So I kind of read a little bit about this. I know you read some of it too. But beginning May 25th, 2018, Dinoland USA will be overflowing with vibrant new decor and festively dressed characters in preparation for an incredible summer. So essentially, they're just kind of giving a little bit of love to Dinoland and putting some, special character meet and greets and stuff like that in there. But it's always nice to see love to parts of Animal Kingdom that can really use it. Chester and Hester's. One of the cool things that I saw, though, and I'm still, a little excited about this, is the pictures that they released have, first of all, Chip and Dale in dinosaur costumes, which that's a little weird. But you have Scrooge McDuck and Launchpad as meet and greets, which is pretty cool because I think that's like the first time in a while that you've been able to meet them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I can't ever remember seeing them before.
I want to say that I've seen them for like special events like the DVC parties and stuff like that. But I know that, like, if I remember, it was Darkwing Duck was one of the special characters that you could meet at like a DVC event. So I feel like they might have been in that too. But other than that, like, I don't think I've ever seen them around. Is this something you're gonna check out?
Oh, most definitely.
I know your love for Chester and Hester, so. All right. So do you want to dive into our topic this week?
Definitely.
Cool. So this is going to be interesting because I know with you being local, you don't really have the option to stay. Well, you don't really stay on property as much as, say, someone like me that when I go down, I really have no choice. But we're going to take this tier by tier. The suggestion was to do them in like chunks, but I feel like we could easily fit this into one episode. So we'll see where we end up. We might have to maybe split this into two, but let's start with the values and work our way up. So the base tier for Disney resorts is the value resorts, which are All-Star Movies, All-Star Music, All-Star Sports, Art of Animation, Pop Century, and the campsites at Fort Wilderness. Have you stayed at any of these?
Yes, I have stayed at all the All-Stars. I have stayed at Pop Century, and I know I've spoken on this plenty of times before. I've stayed at the campsites. In fact, I guess that leaves the only one that I haven't stayed at is Art of Animation.
I have stayed at All-Star Movies, and that's the only one that I've stayed at in this tier. I think that this is the one that they start. I think the lowest is, I guess, the campgrounds, if you want to count that. It's $53 a night. But other than that, they go from $97 a night upwards to, like, I want to say like 100 something. They're usually not expensive at all.
Yeah, I will say though the campsite one that is a little bit misleading because the 53 or 55 whatever dollar amount it is a tent camping site. So just keep that in mind when you do it. The full hookup sites are a good bit more expensive.
It's not awful. How is camping at Disney? Have you done like a tent camp or like full hookup?
I have never done a tent camp. I've done full hookup pretty often, and that was actually the last trip that I went on. We did full hookup at the campsites, and it's really a lot of fun. I would highly suggest it for anyone who already owns a camper. There are other options. There's third-party companies that you can pay that will come in, set up a camper for you so that you can stay there. And if you're really interested in doing it and you don't have a camper, I would suggest looking into that. But if you have a camper, if you like camping, and you're planning on having a pretty, like a fairly lengthy stay at Disney, I would say, if you're staying for at least 6 to 7 days would probably be the best chunk of time to do it, because there's really a lot of stuff to check out and enjoy at the campground, and that you should, in my opinion, at least spend one day just exploring the campground and doing the stuff around it.
I've heard a lot of good things about camping there. I have a friend their family typically does tent camping there, and I wish that I had thought to ask them more about that, because I don't think that that's something I will ever really want to do, but I think it's cool that Disney has that option too.
Mm-hmm. It's a very different way to do Disney, and it's kind of weird because growing up, that was the main place that my family and I stayed. So, when we did stay in a Disney resort, that was the weird thing for us, because it's a lot more fast paced and stuff at the hotels, but the campground, it's a nice relaxing way to do Disney, and it's a completely different experience, and that's part of the reason that I love Disney so much, is that when you really dig into it, there's so much more on the surface, and I think this is one of the perfect examples of that.
Yeah, and even like just resort hopping from resort to resort, you get a different experience no matter where you stay. And that's kind of, we're going to see that as we go through the different resorts and see, the theming and all that. But let's take the All-Stars as a chunk.
I think that's fair enough.
That's the easiest way to do it. All-Stars being the next one up, averaging... I'm going to go by the average price on their website, just because I feel like that's probably the fairest way to do it. Because if I do times now, it's going to differ, and that's also important to remember. No matter when you're booking your Disney vacation, the prices are going to be a little bit different than what we're giving you now. So All-Star Movies, Sports, and Music are all themed to those specific categories, with sports being like football helmets and soccer nets and stuff like that. Music has a giant record player or jukebox and a piano-shaped pool, and All-Star Movies has, I want to say, is it Disney movies? Like, how is movies themed? I've never stayed there.
There's like, I think one of them is like Lady and the Tramp. I can't remember all of them. That I think movies is probably the one that I've stayed at least frequently. But yeah, it's just Disney movies for each building.
One of the reasons I kind of wanted to lump these all together is because if you do use Disney transportation, all three of them are on the same bus route. So you get on at one, it might be the first stop. It's going to have to go through the other two to get to the actual parks, depending on where you are in that rotation. Right. So that's kind of an important thing to note. If you're planning on using Disney transportation, I don't think that it's taken me any longer in the one stay that I stayed at All-Star Sports to get from there to the parks, especially since you do have to go through 3 hotels, but they're only one bus stop in each one, if I remember correctly. So that's kind of important to note too, but it's really minimal to say the least.
I will say that's just one thing to note as we move through these different tiers, is that one of the things that you will experience at a value is, sharing buses, because the other ones also share buses. And I would say that, yeah, a lot of the times you'll be fine with getting on a bus and not worrying about that. But there's also been times where I have seen the lines for, the All-Star resorts very, very long for waiting on a bus, and a lot of times them being overfilled. So keep that in mind. There is, that's part of the downside to, staying at a value. So.
And, it's funny now that you're saying that, I'm thinking about it now. And the one time I did stay there, I do specifically remember that we did have to wait a while for the bus to come. But when we were on the bus route itself wasn't that long. So there are some trade-offs for the pricing. But the tiers that these go for, the lowest being All-Star Sports is $155, and All-Star Music is the same price range. And apparently All-Star Movies is $170.
Wow,
that's what Disney lists their average at. So I don't really know how, when those averages pop up, but I don't know. That's pretty high.
It's very high. That is significantly higher than the last time I stayed at the All-Star Resorts.
I see, the thing about these that I always try to tell people about is this is the school trip resort. This is the cheerleader competition resort. This is where, you're taking a group of kids. That's where you're going. So keep that in mind as well. Not to say that that's a bad thing, because they are affordable, but be aware that they are not the most quiet of the resorts. And they are also the ones that look the most hotel-y.
Yeah. Well, that's a good point, and maybe we can touch on this, just basically the broad terms of what the different tiers are really separating. So, for example, with the values, you're getting the basically the motel style, open up the doors to an outside. We touched on the bus routes. We'll be sharing buses, and more or less the pools, not that there's anything wrong with them, but they definitely aren't very themed per the hotel. I will say there's not a lot of, how do I want to word that? You can tell that where the extra money at the moderate and the deluxe resorts goes when you see the pools.
Right. Well, funny enough, based off of that, I remember very, very distinctly wanting to stay at All-Star Music when I was younger because of their pools. They have the guitar, and I think, isn't there a piano pool there too?
Yep, guitar and piano.
And I thought that was the coolest thing ever, but like as we go along, obviously you'll see there's some differences. There's some better pools.
Yeah, and not to say there's anything wrong, because I mean, honestly, the majority of the times that I've been to Disney, I have stayed at the value resorts, and there's really a lot of stuff, you know, like you said with that, you know, the kids will probably really appreciate the theming, and a lot of the stuff that you'll see at the moderate and the deluxe resorts probably will not be appreciated by kids when they go.
Yeah.
But
so after that, is there anything else you want to touch on with them? I mean, I know as we get further along, like I have more experience with the moderates, so there's gonna be a lot of things that I'm gonna want to hit on here and there, in terms of like resort food and stuff like that. And obviously, as you see, the moderates have good food places, deluxe have good food places, but to me, the values, like even down to the general, like, you know, quick service stuff, it's all kind of like, this is the place that I would go if I'm just gonna go in and hit the parks. Like that's what I view the values as. Or if you're doing Disney on a budget too, that's another good way to keep your money tight.
Yeah, for sure. And you know, that's a good way to put it. A lot of this is, you know, not only reflected on the budget that you have to spend, but like you were saying, how you want to spend your time at Disney. And if you are going to be a park warrior, if you're going to do almost nothing but sleep in your room, it would be hard for me to justify the upgraded cost of staying at a moderate or a deluxe if that's how you're planning on doing the trip.
I 100% agree. But the next one in this tier that is in that price range is Pop Century. That one's averages about $180. I would say that this is a step up from the from the All-Stars. I mean, for $10 more than All-Star movies, like I would probably stay here. It still does have that same motel-y theme, but this one's a little bit more. I don't even know how you would really classify the theme on this one.
It's themed through the decades.
Yeah, that's fair. It's actually, the description on the website says, experience the unforgettable fads of the 1950s through the 1990s all over again, from yo-yos and Play-Doh to Rubik's Cubes and rollerblades. So that's actually the best way to do it, is through decades. I want to say that they're blocked out that way, aren't they?
Yes. Each building is a different decade. Okay.
I have never stayed here, so I honestly know very, very minimal about this place.
So the one time me and my wife stayed there was when we were actually, I won't say fleeing, but we were getting away from Hurricane Matthew. So we decided that we would, you know, since we're right on the coast now, that we would head to Orlando. And since we had, you know, we were pass holders, we got the discounted rates, and it was the actually cheapest option that was open in Orlando that wasn't already booked. So that's where we stayed. So I will say that take that into consideration when I'm giving my opinion on this, because for anybody that knows the ridiculousness that was going on with that, it was not a very good time to be seeing a resort at its best, or Disney in general. But I will say that, yes, I agree with you. I think that the theming there is a step up from the All-Stars. I think you can see a lot of it in the lobby and the like the store that's in there, and even the cafeteria. And I like just the overall theming of the kind of moving through time through the decades.
I think the thing that I like from what I've seen about Pop Century is that there's a very clear defining point on where things end and where they move forward to. Like with All-Star Sports, when I stayed there, everything kind of just blended together. Like you had sections that were themed to football, soccer, and all that, but it was like you move through them and it's like there's not like a transition. I actually got lost in All-Star Sports the one time that we stayed there. Now, granted, the trip that we stayed there was for my 21st birthday, and it was after we had come back from Epcot, so take that with
I'm
for what
sure
it
that
is.
had nothing to do with it.
But I got back, and I remember that everyone else went to the room, and I got a phone call from my girlfriend who was back home, and I picked it up, and I walked outside of our room to talk to her, and I felt weird because there was a couple sitting out on like the balcony. Now, another thing that I don't like about Values is that it has that motel-y style thing where you don't have your own private space, and there's like not really anywhere to kind of escape from. So if someone else is out on the balcony, they're hearing your entire conversation. So I decided I was going to go take a walk around the resort. Well, I walked through our section, which I want to say we were by the football stuff, and I ended up on the other side of the resort just wandering. And I honestly forgot how to get back to the room, and it took me a good 5 minutes after I got off the phone to figure out how to get back to the room. But I feel like with Pop Century, you have that like, okay, I'm here. This is the transition to the next one. Like, there's a very like difference between the places that you're moving. So I do like that about it. Now, the next one, just by looking at Disney's website, I'm going to say this is probably wrong, but guess what Art of Animation is listed at for their standard rate average per night?
See, this is it's hard for me to guess because I know the weird thing about Art of Animation is depending on what type of room you're staying in, because if you stay in like the actual like whatever the standard one is, if you bump up to the next tier, the last time I looked, it was almost double in price.
You are correct. So just by looking at Disney's website, and the reason that I preface this with the room rates are going to change is because right now I'm set as if I were booking a trip in the next 3 months. And of course the standard room, which is the Little Mermaid room, is not available for that time. So Disney's website has this listed as a standard of $430 as their average room per night.
Holy crap.
But like you were saying before, it's because, okay, actually I bumped it down to just the room rate and it gave me still $430, but those are for the family suites. The thing about this one is that yes, it is a value, and the Little Mermaid room is listed at $203 an average night stay, which is still really high for this tier. But you do have family suites in there as well, and for the price, $430 for a family suite's not too bad. For the family suites, for those that don't know, it comes with a queen bed, a double-sized bed, a table bed, a double-sized sleeper sofa. So you have like all that space in there. And I want to say it's got like a kind of like a living area and it's got like a mini kitchenette, I guess you could even call it, because it's got a sink, coffee maker, and a microwave in these suites. This is not something that I would personally do, so I have no experience with that. I honestly have no experience with even walking around Art of Animation. So I don't know if you have anything to say about that, but I definitely do not.
I have not been in it. I have seen the pictures of it, and I know some people will say, well, I don't know if I want to stay at a Disney resort because I don't want to be kind of like, I want to break from Disney when I get done with the parks. This will probably be like your worst nightmare of a room. And if you look at the pictures, you will know exactly what I'm talking about. This sounds really negative, but it's not really negative when you're talking about Disney. It looks like a kid designed it, which is kind of, cute and whimsical and definitely fitting with the Disney theme, but it is like a barrage of The Little Mermaid, or what is the other one, The Lion King, I think that they offer, or I think there's a third movie theme.
The general themes of this hotel are Cars, Finding Nemo, Little Mermaid, and Lion King. Now, I will say, I have seen pictures of the lobby, and the lobby looks really cool as someone that loves like Disney concept art and character design. They have sketches all over the walls in there, and that's really awesome, and I think I probably would have loved it if they had a section that was just dedicated to that. Like, if I could have a room that was themed with, like, Disney concept art, I'd be all about that. But you're 100% right. This is, like, I'm going to Disney. I want to be in that Disney bubble. I want to be surrounded by Disney movies kind of resort. The one thing I do have to say that I remember reading about that I think would be really cool is that this was the hotel where they put the in the Finding Nemo pool. If you go underwater, you can hear them talking.
Wow,
So
that's cool.
that's pretty cool. But I mean, I think I would probably just resort hop here and try to get into their pool for that. But I definitely think that you're 100% right on that. That this is the Disney hotel.
Yeah.
Apparently, they, just by looking at the website, they also have the largest resort pool in Disney property.
Really?
Yeah, I did not know that. But the Finding
Me
Nemo
neither.
pool, which is the one with the speakers, is apparently the largest pool in Walt Disney World Resort.
Very cool.
So that's a little nifty fact. So you want to move on to moderates, where we're going to spend the rest of this episode?
Okay, well, I have two things that I want to touch on before we leave values.
Okay.
One of them is just a quick note on proximity. One of the other downsides, I guess you would say, if you stay at a value resort, is kind of their location. If you look at all the All-Stars, they're close to Animal Kingdom, but Animal Kingdom is not very close to anything else on property. So you will be kind of, off on the, not that it takes that long to get anywhere on Disney property, but just to keep that in mind, you are kind of off on the borders of Disney property next to Animal Kingdom. And Art of Animation and Pop Century, I believe they're pretty close to Disney Springs, right?
I think so. I'm not 100% sure.
Yeah, which again is kind of to the other end. You will be close to Disney Springs. You won't be very close to, the majority of the parks. But again, you're looking at pretty much at a max a 10-minute ride from any of the resort hotels to the parks.
That's not too bad. But I don't know. There's definitely closer.
But the other thing that I really want to touch on that I think is really important for people that are planning is, this big question. And I feel like when this is asked, should I stay on Disney property? This is usually, should I stay at a value resort on Disney property, or should I stay, off property somewhere else? And, if you're looking to save money, it's kind of crazy to me how much this has changed in recent years. If 2 years ago somebody would have asked me this and they said, hey, I'm trying to save money, going on a Disney vacation, I'd say, hey, stay at the value resorts. They're not, they when I looked, they were usually maybe $20 extra a day to the other resorts around Disney property. And I said, if you're going to end up paying $20 for parking, when you go to each park, you're basically going to break even, and being able to stay on property, I think, has plenty of perks. So I would always recommend to people to do the value resorts. But, now as the prices are increasing, now that Disney's implementing this overnight parking fee at the resorts, where does it reach the tipping point for you to decide between staying off property or staying on property at a value resort?
For me specifically, I think for me it's a no-brainer. I would stay at a value resort if I had to. I mean, as you see when we move into the moderates, this is like my bread and butter of a Disney stay. I have stayed at everyone besides French Quarter, and I guess the cabins is included in moderate. And I will swear by almost all of them. But for me, it's different because I'm flying in from, a 20-hour drive. I'm not going to drive down there. I could, but 20 hours is an extra day in Disney. So for me, it's not just factoring in parking, it's factoring a rental car, it's factoring in obviously the parking charges that they're going to charge you if you want to go eat at a resort. My big thing is Disney transportation. I know we kind of said that the buses are fairly inconsistent at the or at the values, but you still get free bus transportation, and that's saying something a little bit more for me. You don't have to pay for the gas, the car, all that, and it's free, and a little unreliable at times, but for the expense of the extra couple not hundred, the couple like $50 a night, like that's, to me that's a little bit more worth it. I think if the values became like over $200 a night, I don't think I could justify that, but
Yeah.
I don't know.
And I agree with that. At this point, I still think it's worth it, especially, if your Disney vacation is, you're going once a year, once every couple of years, I think it's worth it to be in that Disney bubble. But I do think that these price increases are starting to reach a tipping point.
I also think it's kind of important to talk about the perks of staying on property too, because I was going over this the other day with a friend that's getting married in Florida. They're not getting married in Disney because obviously that's very expensive, but their idea was that they're going to stay on Disney property and their whole party is staying, or not they're staying on Disney property, but they're staying near Disney property. They're renting a house. They're paying for everyone in their wedding party to stay at the house. And then they're going to do like they're going to do a couple dinners with the family in the parks, and they're going to do like a bride and groom's dinner in the parks. They're still like staying on a mini vacation with all these people, but they're doing it off property. And she's gone a couple times, but not as regularly as me. So she's been asking me a lot of questions about like, booking ADRs and stuff like that. And a lot of the struggle that I've been finding with talking to her is that, from my perspective, I'm so spoiled with staying on Disney property. You don't get that window, the same FastPass window, the same ADR window and stuff like that. Like, she's booking her ADRs now and she has to book them one day at a time, because they have the park tickets and stuff like that, but they're not staying on property. Whereas like, you're on property, the second your ADR window opens up, that's your whole trip. So while she has the option to say, okay, well, I need to book a reservation for here, she has to kind of choose her days wisely. And that's been a struggle for me helping her out. So I think that that's also kind of like, there's some pros and cons to doing it. And I think still right now, like you said, it is close, but I think the pricing maybe would be leaning towards outside of Disney, but at the same time, the advantages of staying on property kind of push me a little bit back over the edge towards the value. So the other thing I wanted to point out, because I found this out while I was flipping through some of the tabs, if you're bringing a pet with you, Art of Animation is pet friendly. Did you guys bring, I know you have a dog, right?
Yes.
Did you bring your dog with you when you stayed at Pop Century?
I have never brought her in the resorts, and I've actually never kept her at the best friend's pet care either, just because it's always booked so far in advance. Yeah,
the actual website for Art of Animation advertises that they're pet friendly, and the campgrounds say that too, but I wanted to point that out because you never know if someone wants to bring their furry family member on vacation with them.
Definitely. And a note on the campsites, you are allowed to bring pets depending on what type of camper you have and what campsite you're staying at. So for instance, last time I checked, and this may have changed, but at least as of about a year ago, if you're staying in a tent or a pop-up camper, you are not allowed to have a pet. You have to have either a full-size camper or an RV, or I believe the cabins also allow it.
Huh, I did not know that. That's kind of misleading because their website says family or pet friendly, so.
Now that was before also, they did this big push with the other resorts to start allowing pets, so they may have loosened up on those rules. But last I checked, that was what the rules were.
Nice. It's not too bad. So do you want to move on to the moderates now?
Definitely.
Okay. This is surprising because I'm looking at these now, and I said this a couple minutes ago. I love the moderates. I think that this is probably the best value that you can get for staying on Disney property. I think it's the best way to go in terms of, money to what you get theming wise, but prices on these actually kind of surprised me a little bit. Starting with the lowest, which is Caribbean Beach. This probably also has a lot to do with the fact that this hotel is under refurbishment, but your average stay a night here, in comparison to what we were just talking about, this is $214 an average night, which is very close to that value tier.
Mm-hmm.
Have you ever been to Caribbean Beach?
Many years ago. It's been quite a while.
Okay.
I've never stayed there. Now I have resort hop to it.
The resort rooms are nice. I will say that. You have your standard rooms, which are, anything from 2 beds to like a king bed, and the special pirate rooms, which are obviously going to run you a little bit more. We stayed here the last trip that we went on with my whole family. It was very odd because the way that they'd split everyone up, we had like kids in one room, so the boys had one room and the girls had one room, and then like all the adults had their own rooms and everything. But the weird thing about this was that they had like a pull down bed that was under the TV, so they had like a trundle bed, and then like the queen beds and all that stuff. Other than that, it was a standard room. But the thing that bugs me the most about Caribbean Beach is that this resort is huge. There's a lot of walking space. There is a lot of like empty air, which obviously is probably going to go away when they add the new sections and stuff like that. But this is a very big resort with a lot of empty air. But in terms of like special things going on here, this one is pretty nice because it has the Disney, like the beaches by the lagoon, which you can get hammocks on and just kind of hang out by the lake. That's pretty cool. I don't really know what to say about this resort. The pool is nice. It's got like a really big like water slide and stuff like that. This is probably this one and the next one are the most underwhelming of the two, I think.
Yeah, I'd agree.
So after that, we'll jump right into the next one. The next one is Coronado Springs. This one, I like to point this out to everyone. This is a convention hotel. I've stayed here many times just because you can typically get some pretty good deals on it. This was one that my family really liked to stay at for a while. The average a night is $220, which is still not bad. It's a couple dollars more than Caribbean Beach. Very easily accessible to walk around. Nothing seems too far away from anything. But it's got that like colonial Mexico style, very much like the Mexico Pavilion in Epcot.
Very cool interiors.
I do really love this resort. Now, the thing that I like to mention, the fact that it's a convention resort, is because they do have the convention hall there. And a lot of times you'll notice if like there's a business convention or anything, this is the place that they're staying. I don't know why Disney did that. I don't have a rhyme or reason for that, but you will notice that a lot of times there will be like people in suits and stuff walking around and you're like, what in the world are you doing here? I do have to say I love the pool here because they have that giant Mayan pyramid, which is really awesome. Yeah. But other than that, they have the Maya Grill, which is a really good, in my opinion, restaurant. I know someone here has said it was underwhelming.
It was not my favorite. I will say I did really like the decor was pretty cool in it, but that goes for the entire hotel.
Yeah, so. I think the reason this is kind of like underwhelming is because it's got a very nice theme to it, but the theming isn't like, I don't know, like with Port Orleans, both of them, it's kind of like very obvious and in your face. And this does what it's supposed to do, but it's not like very like, wow, I don't there's not that wow factor that they have for the other two. Which might be because it's a businessy resort kind of. But this one also has the same kind of standard things. This one actually has suites in them too, which I think that might be new because I don't remember them being there before. But that's kind of cool if you're looking for like bigger rooms. They go up to like $400 some. Don't think that this would be the place that I would get a suite if I was going to get one. But
probably not.
For the value, I think that this is pretty good. And we've stayed here a couple times. I would definitely recommend this one if you want to stay for like around that price range. And my favorite ones are not available. After that, we move on to, let's do French Quarter first. Okay. So the next one up, and it's pretty easy to lump both of these together, but I think it's good to talk about them separately. Port Orleans French Quarter. I this one I like a little bit less than Riverside. What about you?
Completely agree. I mean, they're both great resorts, and really, if I'm looking to like plan a trip where I'm actually gonna want to stay, I look to do Port Orleans, and I will try to do Riverside first. And luckily, every time I've gotten it, I haven't actually stayed at French Quarter. I've been to it, but I I do agree that I think Riverside's a little bit better, but French Quarter is definitely cool. You get a lot of the same perks that you're getting at Riverside, and I absolutely love the theming at both of these. I can't go on enough about just, I think these are by far the best valued resorts at Disney, period.
So I 100% agree. The thing that like really gets me about these two is that they are within such close proximity of each other, and the theming just seamlessly blends together. Like you can walk from one to the other and almost feel like you never left one resort. I really do enjoy that. I think the thing that throws me off here is the Mardi Gras theme. Because a lot of the pool and the restaurant here both have that almost like prop warehouse Mardi Gras theme. And to me, that kind of like, I don't like seeing like big plastic things just like in front of me. I don't know why, but that just like kind of throws me off a little bit. But I do think that it's definitely cool. It's an easy one to kind of, go to and check out, or it's a good one to go to and check out. I've never actually stayed here, so I can't comment on the rooms. But the rooms are averaging starting at $241 a night. Excuse me. They go from the standard view, king bed, and pool view, all kind of staying within that range. The highest being $254 a night, and then the lowest, $283 a night. There's a room deal going on right now, and I accidentally read that one. $283 a night for the king bed being the biggest one, and the lowest one averages $241 for a standard view, 2 queen beds. You'd honestly be fine with either one, I think, in either of these resorts. I think that there's not too much different between them unless you really absolutely want the king bed. But that's just me. The room theming kind of looks all the same. So after that, I want to talk about the thing that really kind of makes these two really neat to me. And I've said before that I really like Disney transportation, so bringing this up is kind of going to be no surprise to anyone. But you can actually take a boat starting from Port Orleans Riverside to French Quarter to Disney Springs. Which is one of the reasons I really enjoy staying here, because that boat ride is really nice. I don't know if you've ever done that.
I have it, and I completely agree. It's one of the coolest perks of staying at this resort.
And I think the thing that's really neat about the boat ride, like, I like the boat ride from Studios. I like that one, but I don't like it as much as this, because this just ties into the theming of the hotel so perfectly.
So good.
Travel right down the river, and up until the point that you hit Disney Springs, it's like, I honestly feel like it just flows so perfectly together.
It is. It's cool. You also get to see like the bungalows as you go down the river, but yeah, you just and even as the boat's kind of like weaving through the resort, it's so beautiful. You get a cool little like kind of peek into the background and everything, and it's very relaxing. It's kind of cool to do this relaxing thing before you go to probably the most hustle and bustle part of Disney, which is Disney Springs. But it's very cool. I love it. I can't say enough about it. It's the whole resort's cool, but this is definitely one of the coolest perks that you get staying at it.
I totally agree. Now this one, it's very, like I said before, it's very similarly themed to French Quarter. So there's that whole New Orleans theme. This is my hotel of choice for staying at moderates. And, Brian and I have said this a couple times on the show. If you really want the deluxe value theming for a moderate price, Port Orleans is the way to go.
For sure. I think you can maybe say that once you get into the rooms, and I don't really know because I've never stayed in a deluxe resort, but I would imagine the deluxe resorts are a bit nicer, and once you get into the actual rooms from what I've seen, but everything else around just the grounds of the resort and the lobby areas and the restaurants, in my opinion, you are getting, if not there, extremely close to what you're getting at a deluxe resort.
I agree. I wholeheartedly agree. Everything about Port Orleans is fantastic, from the restaurant to even the rooms. Do you have anything to say about the restaurant? Anything about the dining here?
Boat rights is, I love it. Me and my wife both really enjoy it. I think I've said this on here before, but like before we got engaged, that's what we did. We went to boat rides, ate dinner, and then we walked around the grounds, and that's where I proposed. So, I guess I might be a little biased here, and that's why part of the reason why I like it so much. But, the reason I did it there was because, when we had gone before, we just really, really fell in love with the Riverside. I still think it's probably both of our favorite resort in the tier that we can afford to stay at, for sure. So
I wholeheartedly agree. I think that it's funny that at this resort, at this level, when we stay here, we make it a point to eat in the restaurants here. It's, this is usually our first night meal if we're not headed to Disney Springs. Even the River Mill food court is just, it's average food, but there's something about it that's just so good.
Right.
I don't know. Maybe it's just bias, and maybe we're we're just blowing steam up this resort. But one thing I do love about this theming, I think it excels at night. I think that the lights
definitely
on the lake, I think that the way that the buildings are structured, and there's something beautiful about walking around Port Orleans at night when you get back from your long day at the park.
It's so peaceful. It's it's almost to the extent that the campgrounds are that you're getting away, kind of from the rest of Disney, and not in a bad way. You're getting a kind of a reprieve from the the hectic nature of going through the parks and everything. And it really is. It's a great way to just kind of in the night relax, take a peaceful stroll, and just kind of get ready to reset for the next day.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I love that, with this tier and pretty much anything above that, it's not in your face Disney. You get that nice break. Now, that said, I think this is a good time to transition into the rooms, because if you do want it to be in your face Disney, Port Orleans Riverside has the recently renovated Royal Rooms. I think that's what they're called. Yeah, the Royal Guest Rooms. Have you stayed here?
Nope. I have seen the pictures, and I will say that in the ones that I stayed at, which I think I stayed in the standard view, and I think I stayed in whatever the just slightly next one up from that is. They keep it's Princess and the Frog themed, and it's subtle and pretty tasteful in my opinion. Now, I have seen these royal rooms just from pictures, and it's starting to approach a little bit of over the top. But, at least you get that option.
So I think we should probably we'll start subtle, and we'll go up, because I've stayed royal rooms, and as much as it's in your face Disney, I think this was really well done. So standard and regular view, the most in your face that you're going to get is, I want to say, the headboards, and there's a picture of the riverboat on the wall in some of them, if I remember correctly. I haven't been there since they renovated them because I remember them differently than the pictures I'm looking at. But they're very subtle and things like that. So, while you still get that, you still are aware that you're on Disney property. It's definitely not to the extent that the royal rooms are. Now, the thing I have to say for the royal rooms is they definitely did this to the degree that they are, one, expecting it to be a resort that families are taking their kids to, which, I mean, you're on Disney property, obviously. But two, they did a really interesting thing here that I don't know if you're fully aware of. But when we went on our first trip, I actually did not plan on staying in a royal room. I'm gonna tell this story because it's perfect Disney customer service to the 110th degree. But we booked a trip for the first time my girlfriend had ever gone. I was convinced her we have to stay at Port Orleans. We have to stay here. It's my favorite resort. And we booked a standard room for the week that free dining was supposed to come out. And it came out. Everything went perfectly fine. I was on the phone with Disney trying to get my room reservation switched around. And in the middle of my conversation with someone, after being on hold for 3 hours, they hung up on me.
Ooh.
And I was not very happy. So I called Disney back and, obviously things happen. So I wasn't mad. I called them back. I was like, hey, listen, I've been on hold for like 3 hours trying to get my free dining upgrade. Like, I've booked it all in advance and I'm talking to this lady. She's really trying to help me out. And in the end, what ended up happening was the standard view free dining rooms were sold out. So I was like, great, I'm not going to get my free dining. Like, that's not going to be a thing that we're going to get. Now, typically, if they run free dining, they'll give you a discount on rooms, but that wasn't something I wanted to do for some reason. It in my mind, I hadn't figured that had actually worked out to be the same price, which it really actually was. And I was still convinced free dining was the better deal. And I was like, no, it's fine. I don't want to do that. I don't want to do that. I'll pay for the dining plan and everything. And she was like, well, let me see what we can do. So she put me on hold for a couple minutes, went, talked to a manager, and somehow, I don't know how this happened, they bumped us up to a royal guest room, which is like, I think how it had happened was they didn't have, if you don't know how free dining works, they block out sections of the resort for free dining guests. So you have like a pool of standard view rooms, a pool of garden view rooms, a pool of like preferred rooms and stuff like that. Well, I think what had happened was in the time that I was on hold, got hung up on, put on hold again, and then got through to someone, all of the rooms at Port Orleans had sold out besides the royal guest rooms. So they bumped me up for like a discounted rate. And I did have to pay a little bit more, but I was like, you know what, whatever. They just renovated them. Like, this is pretty cool. I'm kind of buying into it. I told her that. She was like, that's fine. I showed her the pictures. She was like, wow, they look really cool. Now, I was super worried that this was going to be like in-your-face Disney. Because by the pictures, it's like plastered walls with pictures of Disney princesses. Aladdin carpet is on the floor. The faucet handles are shaped like the lamp. Like, it's very much in-your-face Disney. But the funny thing is, you get to the check-in counter, you talk to the person at the counter, and they get all your paperwork, and they come back with a little scroll rolled up. And she goes, here, this is from Princess Tiana to you guys. And we're like, okay, this is a little weird. And you unrolled it, and it's basically a little detailed note saying that, she's welcoming you to Port Orleans and that these are the guest rooms that she's prepared for her special guests when they come to visit and this and that. And she's decorated it with decor from some of these other guests that have come to visit. So as soon as we got that letter, it was one of those things where it's like, I see what Disney was trying to do here, and they just perfectly tied that together with a nice little bow with that one note.
That is great.
So I think we still have it somewhere. If you actually look at the tables, it's the same note is on the table, but they give you like a physical copy as well. But it's really cool. They have the pictures of the Disney princesses on the wall. The prince's silhouettes are on the wall as well. There's like a big picture of Tiana in the door and all that other stuff I mentioned before. But the really cool thing that they have in this section of the rooms is they have a headboard on each of the beds that if you push the side of it, it has a little LED fireworks show that goes off. And I can't tell you how many times I played with that thing. Like, she would be getting ready and I'd just be sitting there pushing the button and watching the fireworks go up. it's a cool room, especially if you're into like the Disney princess thing. Now, if you're not like me and you don't get lucky for very weird reasons, this room does average $313 a night, so that does put it at like the top of the moderate resorts. But you know, if it's a once in a lifetime trip for you and your kids, I would say it's 100% worth it. So, what have you thought of any like staying here? Is this just like totally out of your realm of?
No, I mean, I would definitely give it a shot. You know, one of my definite like bucket list things is I want to try to stay at each resort at least once. And even though I've done Riverside multiple times, I would like to go back and do the Royal Room because, you know, I think that would be a different experience really than just staying in one of the standard view rooms.
Yeah, I totally agree. Now, after that one, we have the cabins at Fort Wilderness are also considered a moderate. I've never stayed in a cabin. Have you?
I have not. The cabins they're basically like upgrading to a suite at a different resort because they are mainly set up for like large families. Sleeps up to 6 adults, they say on the site. You could probably fit more if you had like, you know, obviously a bunch of kids. I have not stayed there personally. You know, growing up we always had a camper, so that's what we used. It's a good option if you don't have a camper. It is a bit expensive. I'm looking right now. I think the rates are starting at about $334 a night, which, you know, is a bit pricey. But it is a good way to kind of get the Fort Wilderness experience without dealing with a camper or dealing with going through a third party to bring you a camper. The one thing that I probably would not like about the cabins is just their location on the Fort Wilderness campground property. They're kind of they're near the entrance when you come into the property, which is actually kind of away from a lot of the stuff. So like the boat to the Magic Kingdom and like the Pioneer Hall or Trails and Dining there, the Hoop-de-Doo, all that kind of stuff is not very close to the cabins. So probably wouldn't be a great place to stay in my opinion as far as location. But, you know, like I said, it's an much easier way to do Fort Wilderness, and I think any big Disney fan that goes fairly often should try it once just to do it differently. And the cabins are definitely the easiest way to do that.
We've talked about transportation from the cabins to Magic Kingdom, so I think that I honestly actually can't even remember if I've done this before, but you can visit the cabin, Fort Wilderness in general from the Magic Kingdom. I think that's based on where they are. It's probably even fair to say that it's almost a different part of Fort Wilderness that the transportation is. Is that correct?
Mm-hmm. Most of the stuff at Fort, like the main, I guess I'll say like the hub of Fort Wilderness is where Hoop-de-Doo, the dining hall where River Country used to be, where they now do Mickey's Backyard Barbecue. All that kind of stuff is in one centralized kind of, well, I won't say centralized area because it's kind of near, you know, Bay Lake so that you can take the boat. But yeah, that section of the campgrounds is kind of a ways away from the cabins.
Now, the other thing that I'm looking at the website now, and like I said, I have no experience with this, so this is me all entirely going off of Disney's website. I think one of the biggest draws here, especially for Fort Wilderness, is all the extra activities that you have.
Definitely.
Because there's an archery experience, there's a ranch where you can ride horseback on trails. Horse-drawn carriage is kind of, you can get that at some of the other ones. The Chippendales Campfire Sing-Along. Movies Under the Stars is standard for a lot of places. Like, there's some pretty cool stuff on here that it looks like it's mostly exclusive to just the cabin. So if you want that camping experience while having Disney, like, fairly close, I think this is probably a good way to go with that.
Yeah, definitely. The Chippendale campfire is a must do if you are staying at the campground.
I think I've looked at that a couple times and I'm like, wow, that looks really fun, but
Yeah.
never has been enough to sell me on them.
One of the other cool things too is, especially if you go at Christmas, it's very cool to go around the campgrounds, and because a lot of people like decorate really big for Christmas and even Halloween too, but Christmas is on like a next level, and it's kind of weird. There's almost this like Disney subculture in the campgrounds. Like you can tell there's these people that this is their big like camping trip every year, and they will come, and a lot of them you talk to them and they stay for. Some of them stay for multiple weeks, and they do it big, and they put out all kind of decorations and stuff. And even if it's not for the holidays, like a lot of them will put up like different signs and cool stuff around, the site that they get. And it's really cool. It really is. It's different. You talk, you interact with a lot more people, I think, when you stay at the campgrounds. And just, I know I've gone on and on about this, but really I can't recommend it enough. If you're a big Disney fan and you have an opportunity to do it, I think it's a very cool experience.
I think it's funny that you mentioned that, because the cabins, and actually Fort Wilderness in general, definitely does have its own like Disney fandom in a way. Like there are people that do go and do that stuff, and it's, I would say if you go around Christmas, like you said, and even if you're not staying at Fort Wilderness, if you're staying like on a different resort, go and check it out, because like it's really neat to see.
Definitely agree.
So after the cabins are the ones that I also have minimal experience in. I think it's probably a good idea to note that a lot of our experience with these resorts are going to be from resort hopping and not staying here, purely based on the price alone.
All of mine are.
I have stayed, okay, I'll say it now. I've stayed DVC with my aunt a couple times. I've mentioned that on the show. And out of the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 resorts here, I have stayed at two. Kind of. No, because one of them's in a Deluxe Villa area, which I actually will go over some of them later. But I've stayed at one, technically. So... that said, I think I have visited most of these, if not all of them. But starting it off, we'll start with the Animal Kingdom Lodge, which the average price per night on this one, it says on the Disney website, is $378 a night.
I don't believe that.
I don't believe that for a second. Just looking at it I have it set right now for the 24th of July to the 30th. And the average, okay. Actually, the standard room for that night, way to make me a liar, Disney, is the standard view room. It's $378 a night. So, okay,
wow,
maybe it is true.
Not bad.
Yeah, I might have to try this out next time. But Animal Kingdom Lodge is a neat little resort because you have it's essentially Animal Kingdom themed, like if you couldn't get that by the name. But the cool thing about this resort is that you have the African safari animals basically right outside your door. And I think that's probably the biggest selling point for this resort out of all of the things that they offer here.
Yeah, and there's a lot to offer. I would say the Animal Kingdom Lodge is probably the most unique resort at Disney.
I think I would actually 100% agree with that. So let's talk food here, because
oh my goodness,
let's talk about how many things they offer at Animal Kingdom Lodge. First of all, just to go through the list, you have Jiko, Boma, Sanaa Lounge, which that's technically going to be roped in Sanaa. The Mara, they have a couple pool bar things. Like, there's so much to do here.
It is crazy. Like, I have been to Sanaa and Boma. I have not been to Jiko, but from what I've heard, it's every bit as good as the other two. And Sanaa and Boma are just absolutely incredible. Like, it's a lot of the resorts kind of have their like main restaurant at them, but Animal Kingdom Lodge basically has like 3 incredible restaurants in it. It is fantastic.
I have been to Boma, and I really want to go to Jico, and I really want to go to Sanaa, and I feel so bad saying I haven't been, but Boma is so good that I just don't want to leave. The thing I really like about Boma, though, is that it's a buffet,
Yes.
and I like that I can go and try everything. So that's another
Right.
selling point for me.
That's a good thing about Boma, yeah, because I was gonna say along those same lines. If you kind of want to dip your toes into kind of like the interesting stuff that they have there, you can do that. They also have, you know, kind of, I would say, more palatable for the average person type stuff, you know, on the buffet if you're not into the kind of like unique food that they have there. But it's definitely good. It is probably, I'll say it's my favorite buffet on Disney property.
You took the words right out of my mouth. I was actually going for that too. Now the thing that I do have to say about Boma in comparison to, I mean, I've seen Sanaa, and I think I've seen Jico, like pictures of Jico. I think Boma definitely kind of falls a little flat on the like interior theming, but you know what? I don't care. That food is too good.
Yeah.
So how was your experience with Sanaa? I have heard so many good things.
It is very good. You have a very like, they describe it as kind of an Indian African fusion. And it's not, you know, extremely like off the wall type stuff. Like it's very familiar for most average people, but it does have, you know, a lot of unique flavors. You know, the spices and stuff that they use in the food is different, but you do have a lot of dishes that, you know, like the average American is probably pretty familiar with. But it's great food. I'm trying to remember. I think I had this like one of their steaks last time I went, and it was very good, and for honestly not a very bad price. We went at lunch, I think, the last time we went, so it wasn't as expensive as it would be at dinner, but still not bad at all. The view's incredible. This is one that you can see the animals from, and you know, very frequently they will walk right up to the window while you're sitting there eating. Very, very cool experience. Great food. The atmosphere, I mean, it's incredible. It's at the Animal Kingdom Lodge, so
That's one I'm gonna have to do it the next time I'm down there. Like I want to do Boma again, and I'm probably gonna do it, but I keep looking at Sanaa, and I'm like, no, I really want to do it. I really got to do it. Got to pull the trigger.
Mm-hmm.
And I've heard. Did you do the bread service here? Because I've heard a lot of good things about that.
I have not, and I really want to do it the next time I go because I've heard it's incredible.
So if anybody that's listening has done the bread service, actually, you know what? Anybody that's listening that's done any restaurant in Animal Kingdom Lodge, tell us which one's your favorite, because I think this one's probably the one that it's gonna have like that. You know, all of them are pretty close, and all of them are really strong. So if you're listening this week, send us an email or write on Facebook what your favorite restaurant is here. But after that, I would say we could probably move on to the next one.
Yeah.
Which let's lump these two together because essentially they're pretty much the same resort. Someone's gonna disagree with me. Yacht and Beach Club. Have you been here?
I have not, and honestly, I can't actually even remember the last time that I resort hopped to them.
So the last time I was here, we were here for, I want to say it was like 2012 was the last time I was here. So take everything I say with a grain of salt. And we came here for Cape May Cafe. Now, the thing that I have to totally preface this with, because I'm going to say this, and I'm going to say the same thing about the one after it. I am from, like, New Jersey. So the Jersey Shore, as awful as it is to say that, is very close to me. So this theming of like down by the beach kind of thing, like I have had that near me my whole life. So it's very weird to me to walk into a Disney resort that is themed like that. And I'm just like a little bit turned off by that. Now, that said, it is a very nice resort. And I do like the Cape May Cafe. If you like seafood, it's a very big seafood buffet. And I very much like seafood. This also has Yachtsman Steakhouse, which I've never been to, but I've heard a lot of really good things about, and Beaches and Cream, which I've also heard a lot of really good things about as well. But the general theming of this one kind of falls flat for me. I don't, like I said, I don't really love it. I don't really hate it. It's just kind of neutral. But the big shining point here is the pool. Because they have a very nice pool here. Have you seen
I
Storm
have
Long
seen
Bay?
the pool, yes.
Okay, so the biggest pool is a sand bottom pool that is essentially like a mini water park is kind of how they're selling it on the website. It's 3 acres of aquatic fun for the whole family, and I don't even know how to describe this thing. It is really cool.
I do remember always being a kid. The one memory I definitely have of this resort, and like we would walk by it and be like always wanting to go, and then my parents having to be like, "No, we're not staying here. You can't go in that pool." And I was always like, "Man, but look at it." So,
And that's the funny thing about this one. Like, a lot of the resorts that have DVC rooms and stuff on them, they lock out their pools. So if you don't have a DVC room, when you go into that area, the pool's locked out to you. So if you're not staying here, you can't go into it. And I think that's probably the biggest selling point off of these two. So that said, do you want to jump to Boardwalk? I feel like we just kind of went right through 2 of those. But Boardwalk to me, and now, like I said, Jersey Shore is very close to me. I live very close to Atlantic City, so this theme is kind of like I could go like 20, 30 minutes from my house and literally see the actual boardwalk. But I think the cool thing about the boardwalk is that it's right in the heart of the boardwalk area. So if we're going to talk about boardwalk, we got to talk about obviously the boardwalk.
definitely, it's what you're getting for the deluxe price here.
Yeah. Now the average for this one is $449 a night. And again, that's standard room. They go up to $900, which is their club level room. Insane prices, but you get essentially, I would go as far to say as the boardwalk is a very, very minuscule version of Disney Springs Downtown Disney.
Definitely.
Now, for those of you that don't know what the boardwalk is, you have there's some stores. There's not really a lot of dining there, is there?
There's you've got ESPN Club. You've got I forget what the actual like main one located inside the resort is called.
There's Abracadabra that's there now too.
Oh yeah.
I really want to go there. I've seen that one, but so have you looked into that at all? Not to derail this. Okay, so Abracadabra is a magic bar. And everything here is themed after like magic tricks and stuff like that. So there's like a couple drinks that like they'll come out to your table and they'll mix them at the table, and as they're mixing them, they'll change colors.
That's cool.
It's all about the show, and I kind of want to take a look at that. But like we said, it's kind of you're getting the area that you're paying for more so than the actual theming of the resort.
Mm-hmm. And from someone that's not from an area very close to this, I do appreciate the theming. I think it's cool. Like you said, it's kind of like a mini Disney Springs, but on a much lower key level. Like I'm usually surprised when I go at the lack of people there, because it's a very cool little area that I don't think a lot of people really know about, or even if they do, take the time to go to.
It's very hard to get to.
That is true. It's not the most convenient.
And I think that's what kills it. Like, I think there's a lot to offer here, and there's places specifically because you have Jelly Rolls and you have the Atlantic Dance Hall, which I think would be huge if they were in Disney Springs.
Definitely.
And that's not to say that Jelly Rolls doesn't, like, bring a crowd, because I have seen that place a little bit crowded. But that the idea of them is really cool, and I think that a lot of people should check them out. Now, Jelly Rolls, for everyone that doesn't know, is a dueling piano bar. really, really fun to check out if you haven't. I don't know, like, how else to explain it other than that. But I think that's probably one of the biggest selling points around here. Anything else to talk about on Boardwalk?
No, well, another cool little piece that you get just from it is like the streetmosphere. You know, there's like a magician that'll perform there. You also get some of the little like carnival style games to play. And stuff like that just really helps kind of pull in the theming and everything, in my opinion, and it's just a nice little touch.
Yeah, I totally agree. And that's the funny thing, like, as much as I'm going to say, like, obviously, I've said I live close to that, and it is very close to me. I agree wholeheartedly that this does the theming very, very well. Now, after that, we've got the Contemporary, which I'm going to take the Deluxe Villa that's kind of in here and throw that with this one. But you also have Bay Lake Towers, which is essentially just a part of the Contemporary. It's that very big resort that is right across from Magic Kingdom. I feel like everybody knows where this is. And if you didn't know that that's a resort, because I remember when I was younger, I thought that was just kind of like part of the monorail track.
Yeah.
Is this the first monorail resort we've hit? It is.
It is. Yes.
Wow, that's weird. So this being the first of the monorail resorts, this is actually the last one you would hit before Magic Kingdom. Mm-hmm. The cool thing about this one, I think, at least, is the proximity to Magic Kingdom.
Yeah, and I think this is just my personal opinion. I've never stayed in any of the rooms at any of the Deluxes, and certainly not any of the monorail resorts, but I think I would say the Contemporary probably has the weakest theming as far as the three monorails go, but you do get that great proximity, which is a huge selling point.
Now, this is one of the ones I've stayed at. We stayed at Bay Lake, on DVC points, and I wholeheartedly agree. When we rented at like a 3-family bedroom. Like, we had, for some reason, my aunt was like, this is my DVC splurge this year. And we rented like a room for like 3 nights as part of our big family stay. And,
Wow.
she, like, this is their home resort too. I have no idea how they do it. They bought in when it was cheap, I think, but she splurged on this one. We stayed here, and the theming, I remember, to me, it felt like that model, like, New York City apartment that they show in all those movies, where everything's very, like, modern and, like, that flat theming, I guess. I don't know how to explain it, but it was all very much like shades of gray and white and stuff like that. But I have to say, the view was incredible. You could stand out on your balcony, first of all, and watch Wishes with the music coming off of the TV. Like, they piped in the music on a channel on the TV, and you could watch Wishes from the balcony. Now, obviously, rest in peace, Wishes. But where we were at, the view looked directly over, maybe even, like, a little far off, but Spaceship Earth was, like, right in front of us. Or not Spaceship Earth, wow. Space Mountain was right in front of us. With Astro Orbiters a little bit off to the left, and you had, like, very much direct line of sight on the castle. And I think that's a lot of the reason that people stay here, is because of that view. Now, obviously, Bay Lake's a little bit closer than the Contemporary, so you don't necessarily get that view, but one thing that a lot of people don't know is that if you look at the 2 buildings for Contemporary, there's a bridge that connects the 2 of them. And that bridge, they pipe the music into as well. So if you're standing on that bridge, you can see the castle from there, and you can watch the fireworks go off, and you can actually hear the music. It's a pretty quiet spot to watch it, too.
Very cool.
Now, the one thing I do like about this resort, I'm going to kind of skip over dining, and Kirsten's going to kill me because, Chef Mickey's here. We'll get back to that. But I like the shops in this resort. For some reason, they're not, like, ultra themed, but I always feel like I find the best stuff here.
That is true. Now, I do enjoy the shopping when I come to Contemporary.
I remember the one time that we came to like we monorail looped the resorts, and we got off and we walked through the one store that was in here. I found every one of the Haunted Mansion comics and a couple of the Tiki Room ones and most of the Figment ones, like in one place, and that was the only spot that I had seen them on property. So really cool shopping centers to check out. Definitely recommend that. But let's go back to dining for Kirsten. Have you eaten here?
I have not.
Okay, I haven't done Chef Mickey's, so I'm sorry. I also haven't done California Grill, so I'm sorry. But I have heard a lot of really good things about both of them. I will say that I want to say I've eaten at the lounge here, and the food is supposedly this similar, if not the same, to what you get at California Grill, and it was good. The cool thing about these is that you also get that view from the area to Magic Kingdom, so it's a nice view, and I think that's a lot of the selling point for these as well. But moving along from there, I'm gonna drop this one, not that it's accessible to everyone, but there is also Top of the World Lounge in Bay Lake Towers, but you do need to be DVC to get there. I would consider that actually the best view, because you can like really see everything in Magic Kingdom, but again, got to be DVC to get into it.
Mm-hmm.
So after that, we've got Grand Floridian, which I will I didn't mention the pricing on that one. Got to back up a second. So Contemporary's average pricing is $438 a night. Again, that's their average standard room. From there, they go upwards to like $900. They're over that. They go to $2,000 is the highest one, which is Bay Lake View, 2-bedroom suite club level, $2,319 a night on average.
Wow. That is a ridiculous amount of money.
Yeah. So after that, we've got Grand Floridian, which is another one on the monorail loop. I know that I will never be able to stay here.
Well, the thing with me is if I like saved up money and decided to splurge and like spend the night in a deluxe resort just, to do it for a night, the Grand Floridian is probably the absolute last one that I'm doing it at.
I agree, I think.
The only thing that you get, in my opinion, is the monorail loop. And I don't think that's worth it. I don't particularly like the theming here. It's very like uptight and stuffy. Like you feel like you're in a rich person's house and you like don't want to touch anything because you're afraid you're gonna break it.
I totally agree with that.
It feels very un-Disney. And we talked about some of these feeling more Disney than others, and a lot of the deluxe resorts aren't necessarily Disney themed. They kind of have their own standalone theming, but Grand Floridian, it really does. It feels like a stuffy, rich old person's house.
So I want to put this into perspective for people that have never visited the Grand Floridian, to give you a general idea of how fancy this is. This is actually, I would say this is probably the place that most people consider like getting married at, because the wedding pavilion's here, first of all.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have Disney's 5-star restaurant, Victoria and Albert's, which is the most expensive place to eat on Disney. And on top of that, there's a dress code. The only place on Disney property where there's a dress code is this restaurant.
That is the biggest thing that would take me. I guess if you got that kind of money and everything, then like you plan to bring a suit with you or whatever when you come, but like I still don't want to have to wear it,
I honestly really want to do Victoria and Albert's once in my life. Like that's on my Disney bucket list. The idea that you do have to have a dress, like a suit here, is kind of like a little bit of a put off, because it's Florida. How often do I really want to wear a suit in Florida? But I've heard nothing but incredible things about the dining here. Now, depending on where you actually eat in Victoria and Albert's, the pricing can be expensive to, I don't even want to think about it expensive, because there is actually a private dining room where you can get, it's the Queen Victoria room where it's just you, the person you're with, in a like little intimate dining area, and I think that's pretty neat, but I would never be able to spend the money on this. So just to give you an idea on how fancy this resort is. Now, off of that, there's also Citricos and Narcoossee's, which I've heard really good things about. I think Narcoossee's might be our next one that we try along with Sanaa, but I've heard nothing but good things about both Citricos and Narcoossee's. Have you been to either of them?
Neither one of them.
Okay,
and certainly not Victoria and Albert's.
Well, Citricos is Mediterranean-inspired cuisine, and Narcoossee's is more seafood. But both of them, I think Narcoossee's has the better view of the lagoon, but they're both fine dining experiences. From what I've heard, they're really good. I don't know if I can, swing that, but I want to try one of them at least once. But like you said, I think the big selling point here is the monorail loop. Now, rooms for this one, I just had the standard and I lost it. $607, which you'll notice there's a massive price jump. And that's just the standard room. They go up to... Now, the highest one is not available for the time that I've got selected, but the main building theme park view club level is $1,151. There's 3 tiers above that, and all of them are not available. So
I feel like if you're already planning on staying at the highest level room in the Grand Floridian, you're not really having to budget much. So I don't think it's really going to matter.
Yeah, and I do have to say, it is a very pretty resort. Like walking the grounds of the Grand Floridian is really, really, like, it's a very nice view. It does feel like a stuffy rich person area, but I think it's at least nice to walk around and look at it. I do have to say, when we did our monorail hop, we got all it. The reason we did a monorail hop was because it was too hot to do anything else. And we were just like jumping off at places, like checking it out, seeing if there was anything we wanted to do. We got off at the Grand Floridian, and because we were both in like t-shirt, tank top, shorts, and we were covered in sweat, we immediately had to get back on the monorail because we felt like we were very much out of place. So that's all I have to say about Grand Floridian. I am actually gonna swap these two last ones around because I want to end with what I think is probably the best one, and I think you might agree with me.
Wholeheartedly agree. You don't even have to say it.
So let's start with Disney's Wilderness Lodge. I also think that this is a really good themed resort. Have you been here?
I have not stayed at it, but I have been on many occasions, and I agree with that. I adore the theming at Wilderness Lodge.
So I think this has probably one of my favorite lobbies. I don't know if you'd agree with that.
I think it has the apps. Well, it's pushing it for the next one, but I think it has, if not the best, probably at least the second best lobby in all of Disney World.
Yeah. So the cool thing about this one, it's got, when you walk in, it's got a very like massively tall lobby with like just that wilderness themed like style to it. It very much looks like, so when I was younger, I did Boy Scouts a lot, and we used to do like summer camp style stuff. Like we would go on a big week-long summer camp, and this is like very much how younger me had imagined summer camp. Like that's the only way I can really put this into perspective. But it's like it has a very wildernessy theme to it, and the coolest thing about this is the massive water feature that runs right through the lobby.
Oh yeah.
I think that's hands down my favorite part. It starts in the lobby, goes outside, flows down into a really big waterfall. It's beautiful. Definitely, if you can stop here and check it out, even just to walk around in the lobby, like I would say it's worth it.
Definitely. This is this is one of the best, in my opinion, to go and resort hop at. Like you said, just because I enjoy the dining here too. I think it's it's definitely one that you can just spend some time checking out and and enjoying the theming and what it has to offer, even for the people that aren't staying there.
So you mentioned food. I gotta go here because, one of my resort meals is on here. Which places have you eaten at?
So I'm wanting to say that I ate at Roaring Fork when I was younger. The one that I've been to most recently is Whispering Canyon, which is it's a lot of fun. I think it has very good food too. I've heard kind of contrasting opinions on that. I really enjoy the food here, and it's an experience too with the food. So
let's talk about it because I'm dying to. This made my park draft, if you remember correctly. Yeah. And I honestly think this is one of my favorite Disney restaurants, and I know that people are going to disagree with me, but I think this is like the perfect combination of entertainment and dinner experience all wrapped into one. Yeah. Now I gotta start with this because I did this to my friend. We were talking about Disney vacations and stuff like that, and her and her boyfriend, or now fiance, were going. I helped them plan their first trip and everything, and she was like, where do I have to go? And I was like, if you like barbecue, please do yourself a favor, go to Whispering Canyon. It's so much fun. And she was like, well, why should I? Like, sell me on it. And I told her all the things that I'm going to go into, and she was like, you know what? I'm sold. She booked a lunch reservation there. And I didn't think anything of it because, I've only ever been for dinner. Mm-hmm. They had the exact opposite experience of what I described.
Really?
Yeah. So now, for those of you that don't know, Whispering Canyon Cafe is a very loud restaurant.
Extremely.
It is. You can hear it from the lobby. That's how loud it is. Now, it is in the lobby, essentially. But the biggest draw to this is that you have a lot of interaction with your wait staff, and that's putting it lightly. There's a lot of like shticks and stuff that they do between the most common one. I won't give a lot of them away because I think half the fun is accidentally finding out or watching your neighbor accidentally find out. But the biggest one that they do is the ketchup one.
No, the ketchup.
Do we want to spoil that one? I think it's fair because it's on the internet a lot, but I don't know if we want to spoil it.
Yeah, I think it's a fairly commonly known one.
Okay, so for everyone that's listening, if you ask for ketchup at Whispering Canyon, now jump a couple seconds ahead if you don't want to hear the spoilers. But if you ask for ketchup, your waiter will yell, "We need ketchup," and everyone at your table will have to get up and collect every bottle of ketchup in the restaurant to bring back to your table. Now, I have heard that you can tell them, I don't want that, and they'll sit you in like a special section of tables. I haven't done that specifically because this is what I love about
Who wants to sit in the lame section?
Right.
Like with the people that aren't having fun. I kind of feel like, I don't know, is that just people that didn't know what they were planning for and they just were like, oh, let's go to Whispering Canyon? Because I feel like if you're planning to go here, you don't want to go here if you don't want to interact with the people.
Yeah, and I think that's it. I think if you don't know what you're in for, it's kind of alarming, and they might have, like, that might be why. But now, I told her a couple other things that I'm not going to go into here because I don't want to spoil that. And she was like, you know what? Her boyfriend is very much, like, reserved, and she was like, I think this is going to be great. Like, it'll bring him out of his shell. It'll be so much fun. And I told her, I was like, now you have to make sure that he asks for ketchup. And I remember this story specifically because they went to lunch there, and she texted me when they left, and I had this conversation with her, and I was like, so did he ask for ketchup? And she goes, yeah, he did. And her waiter brought a single bottle of ketchup. And I was like, man, that's such a letdown. But honestly, I love Whispering Canyon. The best part about this is, outside of the entertainment, one of the things on their menu is that they have a full platter of food.
Oh, I was just about to touch on that. That's what I got last time we went.
Now, the thing that really gets me about this, it's the nope, that's the breakfast menu. Because I wanted to read what was on it. It's the all you care to enjoy skillet. It's a family style mixed greens tossed in apple vinaigrette dressing, fresh baked cornbread, slow smoked pork ribs, barbecue pulled pork, roasted glazed chicken, smoked beef, Western style sausage served with seasonal farm fresh vegetables, mashed potatoes, corn on the cob, and cowboy style baked beans. $32 per individual, which is like individual platter.
Yeah.
That can feed like a whole family. That is like best value to me.
It really
honestly.
is. And I mean, obviously, like 32 is a little bit steep, but if you see what you get, and obviously you get as much as you want of it, it's a really good price. If you're the person that can put food away, this is one of the best deals at Disney.
So funny thing that we did, when we went, they split us up between kids and adults. Kids had their own table, adults had their own table, and the kids, what we decided to do was we had a couple picky eaters in our party, and they would eat the chicken off of it, but they wouldn't eat anything else. So that counts as a meal credit. Somehow in the line of things, that is a dining plan credit. And we had our picky eater order from there. So they ordered the buffet, like the big thing, and then we all kind of like, if there was something else you wanted on the menu, you got that. If not, you saved that dinner credit. And it was like the smartest thing that we did, because you can refill that. They're not going to question it if you're sharing with everybody at your table.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I think this is the easiest way to kind of get the most bang for your dinner buck at a restaurant. Now, their milkshakes are really good too. They're also very like out there. That's something I would recommend trying as well. I cannot recommend Whispering Canyon enough.
I have not had their milkshakes. I will have to do that.
Definitely next time you're there, get them. They have a couple different like desserts that are really cool. Check that out too. I really want to talk about all my Whispering Canyon experiences, but like I cannot bring myself to spoil it. The other thing that I will say is, if you haven't gone to Animal Kingdom Lodge, tell me about your Whispering Canyon experience, because I will gladly respond to your emails and Facebook posts for like the next 3 days. Anything else you want to talk about at Fort Wilderness before we move on? Or not Fort Wilderness, Wilderness Lodge.
You know, nothing that we haven't really touched on. I think it's just a beautiful resort. And I think you get a little bit of kind of the off the beaten path that you get from, Fort Wilderness Campground, but also kind of the amenities of getting to stay in an actual hotel too.
I wholeheartedly agree. I think this is probably the best valued deluxe resort, and even down to like the food and stuff. I think this is probably the way to go if I'm going to do value, or not value, deluxe. Now after that, the one that I know we're probably going to talk about for a little bit is the Polynesian Resort. I honestly have a little experience here, and a lot of it's resort hopping. This is like my dream stay.
Yep. It's funny, like this, I've never stayed here, but I think I've spent more time at this resort than any other resort on Disney property.
So what have you done here that you want to talk about? Because there is honestly a lot to do in the Poly now.
I've done Ohana, probably my favorite restaurant on property. Obviously we've talked on here at length about how much we enjoy Trader Sam's. Probably the coolest little bar you can go to. I haven't done the hula show, which is something that me and my wife are actually talking about doing recently. Is it good?
It is really good. We actually, my memory on it is, obviously I haven't done it in a couple of years, but when we started doing our big family trips, this was one that was like a splurge thing. And I remember it being so much fun. We've done a couple like big Disney things, and this is one that specifically stands out in my mind. It might have just been because it was an early Disney memory and there's a lot of nostalgia with it, but I just remember it being really cool. And the food was okay.
I have heard that the food's pretty good. It's not as good as Ohana. But I'd love to check out the show. I think that would probably make it worth it.
I think that's kind of like a thing with Disney, like restaurants that are also dinner shows is like the fact that you get that entertainment with it is what kind of makes the price that much more worth it.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I would say that this is probably the most like beautiful Disney resort. This is one of my favorites. I really, really want to stay here. Average room rates for this one are $509 a night, and they go up from there to actually not as bad as I thought they would be. The theme park level, club level, which is the highest available, is $934. Still out of my price range, but not as bad as some of the other ones. Interestingly
this will most
enough,
likely be like the one resort. Like if it'll probably be the first deluxe resort that I stay at, and it'll probably be like me saving up and just going one night. But like it is the one that I want to stay at the most.
Yeah, and the funny thing is we say that like that this isn't too bad, but you got to also remember that the bungalows are included in this resort, and that's like all the money that I will ever get in my entire lifetime will be one night to stay at the bungalows. Just to put that into perspective, they are very expensive. But one of the other cool features here is that you have the beach that you can watch, or you used to be able to watch witches from. I don't know how the view for Happily Ever After would be. I think that would kind of suffer a little bit since it's a lot of projections. But just everything about the Poly is like so wonderful.
Yep. And on top of all of that, you've got the monorail too.
The funny thing about this one, like to me, I think this is the one where the monorail like fits in the least.
Yeah,
but
definitely.
I don't mind it in the way that they like it's just there. Like I think I've accepted the fact that it goes through, whereas the other two it kind of like doesn't really fit with the theming, but you can kind of make sense of it. I don't know. I thought that was a little funny thing. But do you want to touch on anything else with that before I want to rapid fire through the deluxe villas?
Well, yeah. I'm not going to talk too much into what actually occurs at Trader Sam's, but it's awesome. I would recommend it highly. It is just an absolute blast, and great drinks too. But it's one of the most unique like bar experiences that you can have at Disney. Ohana is not the easiest to get into, but it's very cool. They do kind of like a Brazilian steakhouse type stuff. You come out, they give you like, it's just like one flat rate for everyone. You don't order off a menu. They come and they'll bring out a salad, then they bring out like a thing of appetizers, which they have like pot stickers, and then they have like a kind of noodle dish, and then you get your main course, which is where they bring like the skewers of the they have like steak, chicken, and shrimp, and then they do the like mixed vegetables and stuff with it, and then at the end you get like bread pudding with ice cream, which is absolutely delicious. But it's a great restaurant. I love it. Probably my favorite. But if you can't get in Ohana, the other restaurant there, Kona Cafe, is also very good. It has a lot of kind of interesting like Hawaiian dishes, and it's nice to actually be able to order what you want and that too. But I love just all the dining at the Polynesian.
So funny enough, I've never been to Trader Sam's as much as I know you guys love it. It's so funny that every time I've been there since Trader Sam's has been open, something has come up. Like,
really?
The first time that we were there after they opened Trader Sam's was when the Haunted Mansion mugs came out. And I don't know if you remember how bad the wait times were to get in, but people were lining up like 3 hours before they opened, and I could not convince myself to go there just because of that. As much as I was like, maybe you might get a Haunted Mansion mug, I was like, no, that's not going to happen, and I'm going to wait 6 hours in line and waste a whole day there. But Trader Sam's is on my bucket list, and so is Ohana.
Definitely, I highly recommend both of them. I would say Trader Sam's before Ohana, because I mean, Ohana, you get a little bit of a show with it, but it's mainly about the food, and it's good food. It's a lot of food. Definitely be prepared to eat. But like Trader Sam's is just, you can go in there and stay as long as you want, and just kind of, it's a unique experience, and like everybody's having fun in there together. Like you won't go in there and just, so you're not going to go in there and like have a drink and leave. I guarantee it.
The one thing that I really do want to touch on that I know about Trader Sam's, outside of what you said, is that a lot of the drinks come in like souvenir mugs too, so you do get to take them home. Is that correct?
No, you can. Almost every drink has its own like souvenir mug that they serve it to you in, and you don't have to pay for the souvenir mug to take it home. You can just give it back. But yeah, they do offer that on, I think, almost every single one of their drinks.
And I can't imagine going and not paying to take the mug home.
They're all very cool, and not, again, I don't want to give anything away, because I remember not really knowing what it was the first time I went, and just like me and my wife were like seriously laughing and smiling the entire time we were there, like the first time we went, because we had no idea what we were going into. So I want to preserve that for as many people as I can, but just to let people know, it's fun. Each drink is an experience. I'll just say that.
I'll have to report back once we go. So now I kind of want to rapid fire through the Deluxe Villas, because this is the one where if you're staying here, Disney, enough about these resorts because you're DVC. Mm-hmm. So I want to kind of hit on these. A lot of them are in places we've talked about. Some of them aren't, which is why I want to hit these real quick. But to go through the list, we've got Bay Lake Towers, which I talked about a little bit, Boulder Ridge at Disney's Wilderness Lodge, Copper Creek Villas and Cabins at Disney's Wilderness Lodge, Animal Kingdom Villas, Jumbo House and Kidani Village, Disney Beach Club Villas, Boardwalk Villas, Old Key West Resort, Polynesian, Saratoga Springs, and the villas at Disney's Grand Floridian Resort and Spa. Like I said, a lot of these are DVC, and a lot of these are very expensive if they even book them outside of that. I will say I have stayed at two of these, and that would be Bay Lake and Old Key West. And to be perfectly honest, I don't think I would pay the price for them.
Really?
Yeah. The nice thing about them is all of these are the villas. They're all the rooms, but obviously we've talked about this to death on these shows. Theming's very important to me, and for both of them, I didn't feel like I had that Disney theme. Now, Old Key West to me felt like a retirement home, which is very weird. But the only nice thing that I thought here, and I know that this is going to be very odd because they have some nice restaurants and stuff like that are okay. But the pool was really nice. The cool thing about the pool here was that it was a giant sandcastle. And it has like the decorations where it's like a giant sand bucket with a shovel in it. There's a bunch of different things there to that theme. But the overall theming of the resort it's basically like a Florida retirement home. And that's like, to me, that just did not feel Disney. The rooms were nice. We had, it was I think it was a 2-bedroom villa. And it was really cool because you got like the kitchenette and everything. The weirdest part of it that I remember, and this is like so minuscule, is there's an island in the like little kitchenette area, and the island has like a cabinet at the bottom of it on the side that faces the couch, and that's where your TV is.
Oh wow.
Which is really weird, but I don't know. This was another one that it still kind of felt like a retirement home. The nice thing about this one is that you can, if you have, at least where we'd stayed, we had like porches that you could walk out onto and like sit on the little back balconies, and you were within proximity of the golf courses. So again, it has that retirement home feel to it. But to me, I don't think I would pay to stay here. It was nice when we did stay here, and I do like appreciate my aunt for, helping me out with that, but I don't think I would do that. And then I kind of talked about Bay Lake Towers. I would stay there for the view, but the theming itself was kind of eh. Now, the other one that's on here that I want to touch on, I don't know if you've been here, but this is the only one that doesn't have ties to the Deluxes besides Old Key West, is Saratoga Springs.
I have not been there.
I know a couple people that actually, like, go here for their, like, DVC things. Like, this is their home resort. And, I mean, I've never actually been here, but I've heard that it's good. It's also within proximity of the golf courses, and this is the one that has the tree houses. Is that correct? Yeah. Yeah, it is. Okay, so you have the treehouse villas here as well, which those are also very pricey. But again, you'll be staying here if you're DVC. But I do want to mention on top of that, because I know that Christian's going to kill me if I don't, you can rent DVC points. It's not officially through Disney. There are plenty of guides to do that online. I'm not going to dive into that because I feel like that's a topic in and of itself. But that is a thing that you can look into if you do want to stay in some of these deluxe villas and deluxe resorts for maybe a discounted price. But that's definitely an option as well. So now that we've run through all that, real quickly before we tie this up, I want to talk about the resort tiers and discuss which ones we think are the best for the value in the resort tiers. What do you think about that?
Let's do it. That's a good idea, I think, because I think that's mainly what you're going to do when you're playing a Disney hotel, right? And this is probably the most well, it's for a lot of people, you know, your resort's going to be the most expensive part of your trip. So I think it's very important once you set your budget and you see what tier you're in, you know, to decide, well, which one is really going to give me my best money's worth.
Yeah, exactly. And we could start value and work our way up. And even if it's like your favorite, I would say rule it for the idea of I'm getting the most bang for my buck here. Because I know once we hit deluxes, that's going to be where it starts to get kind of funny. But value, I would say Pop Century. I've never stayed there specifically, but I like the idea of the theming. I think that it's average price for the value and the fact that you get your own bus route, if I remember correctly, for that one.
I think they share with Art of Animation. I'm not completely sure on that, though.
Either way, 2 is better than 3.
Right.
I think Pop Centuries probably would be my go-to. If not, maybe I wouldn't rule the All-Stars out, but I wouldn't put them in my first pick.
Yeah, I think I'd agree with that. Having not stayed at Art of Animation, I can't really speak on it, but yeah, you're definitely getting a little something extra than you are at the All-Stars for not really that much of a difference in price. And I would prefer to have the proximity to Disney Springs than to Animal Kingdom. Just 'cause, I mean, not that necessarily it's better, but just, you know, if you're planning on going to the parks, you're probably going to get up and do that early anyways. Disney Springs, you might want to just hop over there real quick. So that's a plus in my book.
Yeah, and I think, like we said before, the value with the All-Stars is if you're going and you're not going to spend any time at the resorts, you're not going to spend any time at the resorts, stay at an All-Star.
Yeah, when me and my wife go and, like, it's like we're crashing here for a night after the parks or something like that, or a lot of times like before we go to visit family in Georgia, sometimes we'll go to the parks and then stay at one of the hotels and then go, you know, to Georgia because it's on our way home. We try to crash at the All-Stars because they're usually the cheapest, but, you know, that's kind of, I feel like what they're mainly made for. They're made for the, like you said, like the big groups, like the cheerleader groups or the student groups from other countries, and for people that are just looking for a place to stay on Disney property as cheap as possible.
I think this is where our high school actually stays for their senior trip.
Oh, that's cool.
But moderate tier, I think we could both agree, Port Orleans Riverside.
Yeah, I don't think, like, obviously, you know, the other ones offer benefits over the values, but I don't think any of them offer what Riverside does. And, you know, like we said before, Riverside's probably the best bang for your buck on Disney property, so it's certainly got to be the best in the moderate category.
I would agree with that. I think if I can't get into Riverside, Coronado Springs maybe, but even then, Riverside's on another tier for me. Actually, if I couldn't get Riverside, maybe I'd go to French Quarter, and then I'd go to Coronado. But we talked about that already. Deluxe, bang for your buck for Deluxe. I gotta go Wilderness Lodge, I think.
So, Deluxe is a hard one because, what I really think when or if I ever stay at a Deluxe resort is that, I definitely want to take advantage of what's at the resort. And yeah, Wilderness Lodge is definitely a great price, and I love going there. Don't get me wrong about that. But when I think about it, is it one that I could really spend multiple days at, like just going around the resort on a single trip? That I don't know. But I feel like I could definitely do that at the Polynesian and certainly Animal Kingdom Lodge. I think Animal Kingdom Lodge probably offers the most out of any of the resorts. And even though it is on the upper tier, even in the Deluxe resorts, I think for what you're getting, I'm going to have to say Animal Kingdom Lodge is probably the best bang for your buck, just because you're getting like basically a zoo at your room. You're getting 3 extremely good restaurants. You're getting, I think, probably the most impressive architecture of any of the resorts. I think, yes, it's expensive, but it's you get the most out of any resort, I think, on Disney property from Animal Kingdom Lodge.
Yeah, actually, now that I'm looking at both of them side by side again, I think I'd agree with that. Wilderness Lodge is on the cheaper side of the two, and I think that's a good selling point, but it's not by much. I think it's like $20 average, and for that extra $20, you get all the stuff that you just listed. It's a no-brainer that Animal Kingdom Lodge would probably actually be your better bang for your buck. Now, splurge stay, I would say Poly, but
yeah,
I feel like, honestly, as much as I love the Polynesian, I think for the price, you definitely get more at Animal Kingdom Lodge.
I agree, but I also, I know that I love the Polynesian, and it's easy to get to, and I think, the one other benefit that you're really getting from the Polynesian over the Animal Kingdom Lodge is transportation to Magic Kingdom. So, but it'd be very hard to pick between those two. Like if say I want a free week stay at a Disney resort of my choosing, it would probably come down to either the Polynesian or the Animal Kingdom Lodge, and it'd be very, very hard to decide between the two.
Honestly, if I want a free vacation, I would go Poly. I'm not even going to lie. Animal Kingdom Lodge is, I would say it is a good bang for your buck, but I think in that instance, if I could do any tier, let's go Ultra and say I would rent the bungalow, but I know that's not going to happen. But yeah, I don't know. I think if I could splurge, I would do the Poly. Not that it's much more, it's $100 and some odd more, but that's an extra park ticket,
True.
So I think that's going to do it for me. Do you have anything else you want to talk about before we wrap this week up?
No, I think that does it for me.
Then that's going to do it for us this week. Thanks for joining us again on another episode of the Station 71 podcast. If you like what you heard, be sure to subscribe to us on iTunes or wherever you get your podcasts from. While you're there, you can leave us a review, and we'll be happy to discuss your questions, comments, or concerns on next week's episode. If you want to get in touch with us and chat about some Disney stuff, find us on Facebook.com/Station71Pod, Twitter at Station71Pod, Instagram at Station71Podcast, and you can email us at Station71Podcast@gmail.com. Thanks for joining us again, guys. We hope you enjoyed your ride, and we'll see you real soon.